Dr. Schroeder, let's jump into it. I had a guest on my program recently who talked about his, from a scientific perspective, his explanation of the world's only 6,000 years old, and you have a different explanation of the age of the universe, or the age of the Earth in particular. I think is maybe what we're more interested in.
Well, essentially the age of the universe, so it's
Okay.
the same thing.
So how old is the Earth?
Who was the person? So I'll have some perspective here.
It was Kent Hovind.
Kent
Hovind. He is a Christian evangelical young Earth creationist.
Okay, first question you have to ask him is, how fluent is he in Hebrew? That was the first question you should have asked him. I didn't hear the recording. If he's not fluent in Hebrew, he should stay out of the argument, since the whole text is based on the Hebrew text. The whole argument is totally related to there's a proverb. It says, a word well spoken is Proverb 25. A word well spoken is like apples of gold in dishes of silver. The commentator Maimonides in about the year, make me guess, 11, 10, 11, 15, 20, 30, about almost 1,000 years ago, writes, what was King Solomon talking about when he wrote this? A word well spoken is like apples of gold in dishes of silver. And he writes like this. This is long before anyone was worried about dinosaurs or cavemen. We're talking about almost 1,000 years ago, okay? He says the Torah has several levels of meaning. A word well spoken is like apples of gold in dishes of silver. The dishes of silver is a literal text of the Torah. And when you look at a dish from a distance, you see the silver dish, but you can't see what's inside it. Only when you look deep into the dish itself, you find the apples of gold. What's the silver dish? The literal text of the Bible. What's the golden apples? The secrets in why one word was chosen over another. Now you notice it wasn't apples and silver in dishes of gold. It was golden apples in dishes of silver. The silver is the literal text. The gold, being more valuable, takes that text way beyond the meaning. The silver dish has huge value, obviously. No one's throwing out a silver dish, at least not in my house. I don't know about your house, not in my house. And
I don't think we have any silver dishes. But
the apples of, beg your pardon?
I don't think we have any silver dishes in my house, but if we did, we probably wouldn't throw them away.
So anyway, so the deeper meanings are the subtleties within the text. And the subtleties of the text allow you to see that there's a reality of two different perspectives of time. And that's the whole answer to the age of the universe. The universe is 6,000 or whatever years old from a perspective of the biblical perspective looking forward. But we don't live in that perspective. That's the Bible's perspective. I don't like to say God's perspective. It's the perspective that God gave in the written text. And that is why in the 6 days of Jan, and this is, when I get to Jerry Schroeder, I'll tell you it's my idea, okay?
Okay.
The calculations are totally mine. But the idea that there are two perspectives is thousands of years old. The text, and it is Maimonides, and then it doesn't matter. They're all from the same period, about 1,000 years ago. That why is the numbering of the 6 days of Genesis rather bizarre? The numbering of the text is 6 days. At the end of each day, there's a couplet that appears nowhere else in the entire Hebrew Bible. And that is in English translation. And there was evening and there was morning. And then the day is numbered. You're probably familiar with that from your help. This happened. In the beginning, God creates the heavens and the earth. There's this. And there's evening and morning, day one. More things happening, evening day, a second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, the sixth day. So the question stands out like a flame. Why does the text say day one? Evening, morning, day one. It says second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, the sixth day. Give me a first day. Why doesn't the text say there was evening? This is not me speaking. As I said, I'll let you know when it's my idea. But this forms the entire basis for all the calculations that the universe is these 6,000 years old, and the universe is 14 billion years old, from two different perspectives. The text writes day one because there had not yet been a second day. That means the perspective of time is from the beginning looking forward. In Genesis, it's not from Sinai. By the time you get to Sinai, there'd been hundreds of thousands of days. If the perspective of time in the Bible for these 6 days was from Sinai, it would have written, the text would have written this evening and morning a first day, because it's been thousands of days, till you get to Moses on Sinai. You had to go through the whole Egypt experience and the Exodus and the wandering, etc. So the text says day one because the Torah sees time from the beginning looking forward. That's not now. There wasn't yet a second day means it's from the beginning. The only time there wasn't a second day is on the first day. And therefore the text writes as evening, morning, Yom Echad, day one. Now there are many, I gotta tell you, there are many unfortunate, you refer to me as Jerry or Yaakov, I refer to you as Nehemia, right? I'm having to make, okay. My Hebrew is Yaakov. Okay. So there are unfortunately many mistranslations that write there as evening and morning into English and into other languages also. A first day, the fact is the Hebrew says day one. There's no question about the Hebrew. So the Torah sees time from before there was a time, there was a second day, which means the Torah sees time. The Torah meaning the Hebrew word for the Bible. The word Torah is the Hebrew name for the 5 books of Moses. So Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So the Bible, the Torah sees time from the beginning looking forward until you get to Adam, where the description of time changes and becomes earth time. So we have this cosmic view of time looking forward from the beginning.
So it's really interesting what you're saying. I just pulled up on BibleHub.com because I read it in the Hebrew like you do. So I actually wasn't aware that there's, or I certainly didn't remember that in Genesis 1:5, a lot of translations have the first day. I'm looking at NIV, New Living Translation, King James Bible, New King James. But then New American Standard Bible has there was evening and there was morning one day, right? So some of them do have in English one day, but then other ones have the first day or the first day. Even they've added the word the. So that's interesting. I didn't remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're making a distinction between the first day and one day.
I did no. The commentators 1,000 years ago made the distinction.
Okay.
I put the numbers in.
Okay. All right.
I didn't make that distinction.
Okay.
And the commentary is the reason that the Torah says day one. It's not me. I'm not stealing from in Nehemia. I'm not stealing from anyone. Okay. When it becomes my idea, I'll tell you.
Okay.
I gotta thank God. I tell you,
All
I think God got the address wrong. That He let me be the one to make the calculation. But anyway,
all right.
The text says day one, to quote my money's not. They're all the same time, 1,500 years ago, because there was not yet a second day. That is the commentary on day one from 1,000 years ago. Because there was not yet. Now, why would that interest anyone? Because in a static universe, it makes no difference where you see time from. Zero. The only difference in perspective of time that we have in this universe is because the universe is expanding. And the commentary on the creation of the universe, again, from these same commentators, starts as it reads like something out of NASA, a very small point. This is not modern comment, it's 1,000 years ago. Very small point, not matter, as we say. The Hebrews, dak ma'od ein bo mamash, so thin, there's no physicality. We call that stuff energy today. Dak ma'od, so thin, ein bo mamash. There's no, you can't call it air because air has plenty of mamash. Get caught in a hurricane, and you know how much mamash air has. So and then this dark mode, Ein Bo Mamash, as the universe expands, changes into mamash, into matter as we know it. And that's when the clock begins. And then it says, when you finally have this again, I'm about to tell you when it's Schroeder. And then it says, the commentaries, when this first matter forms, time grabs a hold. Now, before that time is going by. But the only thing.
Where does it say that?
It's a commentary, Nachmanides and Maimonides.
Okay, Nachmanides says that before there was matter, there was no time. Basically, is what
No, I say that. I say when matter form. He writes this: Mishia Yesh. When we finally get matter, time grabs hold. Yitfos bozman. Mishia Yesh. Yitfos bozman. Straight statement. Okay. So that's in his commentary on Genesis chapter 1, verse. I don't have 1 or 2 or 3. One of his first few verses. I could put. So time grabs a hold. Now, before that, time is going by. But he uses the word tofes, but it grabs hold because energy is outside of time. Mm-hmm. The time is only linked into something. So that's the beginning of the biblical. That's the beginning. I call it the cosmic clock. Now comes Jerry Schroeder. Okay. So I say, when is the first matter that formed? And I have no wiggle room here. I'm stuck. Electrons, protons. What's the first stable matter? Well, let's say electrons are formed when neutrons decay. Neutrons decay into protons and electrons. Neutrons are not stable unless they're inside an atom. Okay, so they have a short half-life of a few minutes. So that's the reason that electrons and protons match, that the universe, protons are positive. By convention, we call protons positive, electrons negative, and that's why they match, because neutrons, like the word neutral, are essentially, in simplistic talk, a combination of a proton and electron. But there's this, they disintegrate, and then you have a proton, an electron. That's the beginning of matter, because protons define matter. If I say I have an atom with 1 proton, I'm saying hydrogen. I say an atom with 2 protons, helium, 6 protons, carbon, 8 protons, oxygen. I mean, my background is nuclear physics. And the earth science is just lucky. There's 2 things together, or fortunate. I was told once, I was on with Pat Robinson once, and I said, I was just lucky. And he said something, it was I apologize for getting off track, but it was a huge lesson. I said, I was just lucky. And he said to me, you weren't lucky. You were blessed. Now, not blessed like, oh boy, I'm blessed. No, it's a gift. He said, it wasn't luck. You studied physics and earth sciences so you could put these together. It wasn't luck. I mean, it wasn't like being like you deserved it, it's like a gift, we think some things are, what I'm getting at, right? It's nothing.
Well, I think there's this thought that luck is like this kind of force in the universe, and we can influence it. Sometimes we can't influence it, right? We can do things that cause bad luck, and that's not a Torah concept, that there's such a thing as luck, right? Meaning like
anyway, you're getting to being blessed. But in any event, so when matter, so what's the first stable matter that forms? Protons.
Yeah.
Protons. So I say the clock of the Bible, because it says when the matter forms, time grabs a hold. Mishia Yesh Yitfos bozman. That's Maimonides. Actually, it's Nachmanides, the 2 of them together, but I'll stick with Nachman. So time grabs a hold when stable matter forms. So that's the beginning of Jerry Schroeder's calculation. Okay,
yeah.
And the calculation. And we see time so the Bible sees time from there looking forward.
Yeah,
we see time looking back from today.
Mm-hmm.
We measure 14 billion years looking back. The Torah makes 6 days looking forward, however it is goes. And with those two different perspectives, you get a universe that can be 14 billion years old or only a few thousand years old. They're both true. Just
okay. So when they all right. So talk to me about so there are radiometric dating systems like potassium argon and uranium lead. So when those date a rock, and that rock gives a date of, a billion or 2 billion years. I don't
Yeah,
think we have rocks
true.
on Earth that are more than 2 billion years old, according to those dating systems or those methods. You're saying that, what are you saying? From the
I'm saying
perspective,
the Earth is, if I'm doing it from memory now, I had a bad fall about half a year ago and it really knocked out
I'm
besides
sorry to hear that. Okay.
it has affected my memory. So I do these some memory. But the Earth is about I think it's 4.6 billion years old. I think that's the number that the Earth is 4 billion years old or 4.5 billion years old. The Earth is that old. The universe is just under 14 billion years old. On Earth, as we measure time, and that's where we live. I mean, we're in a measure.
Mhm.
You measure it on Earth. Even before that, but we're using Earth-based clock.
All right.
The radioactive measurements of the decay of those nuclei that you mentioned quite accurately. The choices were 100% correct. Were that we have an Earth that's billions of
Yeah,
years.
I'll hear people say, well, they've done carbon-14 dating on the age of the Earth.
Oh, yeah. So I hope you correct them with that. Yeah.
No, yeah, carbon-14, even according to the most maximalist claims, doesn't go back, millions of years. So, all right,
The half-life of carbon-14 is about 5,000 years.
right,
So I mean, after like 20 half-lives, there's nothing left to measure.
right. So you're saying maybe 100,000 years. Okay, all right. So,
No, wait, what did you say? I heard a sentence about 100,000 years.
no. So you said that this is 20 half-lives, so 20 times
Oh,
5,000. So,
I'm just for the
but I
number.
think it's considered accurate to 50,000 years if memory serves me. I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
I have
Anyway,
no problem with that, but for sure it isn't measured to billions of years.
right, for sure. So, all right. So in any event,
But let your readers know, because you said it before, there are about
right.
6 radioactive clocks.
Uranium, lead, potassium, argon.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you take uranium lead dating and you find a rock that says it's 2 billion years old,
I have one
you're
right in the next
saying,
room. I
do
can pull.
you? Okay,
It
so
was a gift.
you're saying this isn't a satanic lie of the scientists who want to destroy our faiths. It's actually correct.
It's it,
So
it's from as we measure time on this, it's absolutely correct. And the argument, I had this once in front of a whole group of students, and their teacher was there, and he had always taught a young Earth, and he started saying how the flood could have caused the change, because that's often an argument. Well, the flood would have mixed up the flood messed up nothing, because we happen to have uh, fossils from before the flood that were dated in several different ways, not just radioactive, and they match. The flood couldn't have changed the flood, but kids, in brief, the flood could not have changed the radioactive decay of these elements. It takes nuclear events
mhm.
like atomic bombs to change rates of decay.
Which we've had atomic bombs, so there's a little bit of a problem, but that's
I've actually seen quite a few.
right. I understand you were involved in nuclear testing. I think we mentioned that in the
Yeah, you've
last
heard of
interview.
the SALT talks, the strategic arms limitation.